Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Azureish Live. We're kind of into part three. Oh, hang on, I can hear myself more than once. Okay. We're into part three of our zero-touch CI/CD pipeline build in Azure DevOps. And following on from last time, we're going to start taking a look at our infrastructure as code. Obviously, previously we've set up a basic CI build for our backend function app, and we've created all our prereqs now for using the Terraform. And today, with my illustrious co-hosts Jonathan and Pete, we're going to have a crack at building out the Terraform, at least for the back end of GitWatcher. So hopefully we should get somewhere. Admittedly, on this occasion, I don't think we've not done any pre-work at all, have we? So it's kind of
literally as live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you've ruined it to begin with by saying that hopefully we'll get somewhere, because now we definitely won't.
That's what I live for, Pete. I'm just ruining things. Cool. So I guess let's flick across to there. It's probably worth pointing out as well, while I remember, that you can get to all the code that we're doing now and everything else over on GitHub, which will be github.com/Azureish /GitWatcher as well, if you want to look at this specific project.
Is it worth telling people what we've done, for those people that may be tuning in and don't know what we've done?
Yes.
Can you remember what we've done, Liam?
Outside of the thing that I've just run through, I don't think we've done anything else. So obviously we've got our GitWatcher project, which is all function apps, Blazor, and that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm. That's all hosted in GitHub, and we're pushing stuff to GitHub, but we're all connected to Azure DevOps now, and we've got a set of pipelines that we've set up to publish binaries, drops, bits and bobs, artifacts. And
yeah, so if we go into this here, we can actually see the two stages that we've put in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got our build, which is doing it's building a function app, which is still .NET Core 3.1. We create our pipeline artifacts as well. One of those is to do with the application package, and the other one is to do with our infrastructure as code package. And then we have our prereqs down here, which is basically getting that pipeline artifact from the previous step, and then we deploy an ARM template. And we've turned on all the debug information here to be able to see exactly what's going on, to set up, or at least to store what's going to be our Terraform state file.
Didn't we have a problem at the very end of the show the last time we did this, where there was a naming problem and we weren't picking up the artifact properly?
Yes, but I don't remember what it was. But it's working now.
No,
so.
You fixed it offline, I think.
You did fix it offline. Let me try and scroll back and find that. When was the last show?
Was it? I think it might have just been a path thing.
I think it was.
So in any case, here's the ARM template that we've created for the state backend. So we're going through, and it's nothing complicated here. What we've got is I think we just based it off the Azure quick start. I might have it sound like twos coming through my microphone. Let me plug my headset in instead, because what it'll be is, because I'm coming through my speakers at the moment, RTX audio is recognizing that there is there is a human
feedback.
Voice that isn't mine. Trying to compensate that way.
It's definitely not the dog or the cat then, yeah?
Yeah.
There we go. No, not on this occasion. It's pretty good at blanking out pet noise, to be fair.
What about children noise?
It's good for that as well. Though, my daughter doesn't really make a lot of noise. She's a very quiet person, so I don't know. I'm not entirely sure she'd mind So
you can be quiet when you want to be, Liam. It's sloppy though. Mine's very noisy.
Johnny, thank you for being in the chat. Is that better?
And now wait for the Twitch delay.
Still sounds the same.
Still sounds. That is interesting.
You've muted your screen share because that's usually the first place it comes from, isn't it? Can you see multiple mics in OBS?
Tell you what I'll do, and I'll change just OBS, and I'll ignore NVIDIA broadcast for now.
Oh yeah, different sound now. In fact, can't even hear you.
Yeah, Johnny's right. It sounds like you've got chorus effect on. He's quite right. There's just a very nanosecond delay between the two.
How is that?
I don't know.
Well, it's fine here. We'll find out on the stream.
Just sounds like we've got more Liams. It's fine.
Yeah. I noticed that at the very start of Johnny's soldering stream, which was very good, very fun to watch actually last night. If you missed that, worth going and catching up. In fact, I was a bit disappointed that no one screamed burning themselves as they were doing it. That was half the reason I tuned in, if I'm perfectly honest. It was really good. It was
Formula One. You're just waiting for an accident.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yes. But as well as it was very good. It was cool to see a couple of people hadn't soldered in 20 years soldering live on Twitch. But yeah, there was two of Johnny at one point, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't be able to fix it now. This is why it would be handy if we had somebody who was doing this kind of stuff in the background whilst we were presenting.
Another you, or another Jonathan.
Another me, another Jonathan, whatever.
I posted the Git commit that Pete was referring to. That was the thing that you claimed to have fixed the problem that we had at the end of the last show.
Yeah.
So that's available in the Twitch chat.
So
a small working directory change.
That was it, yeah. So I guess let's start writing some code, folks.
It was actually the deployment scope. That was it. I remember now. It was the ARM template task.
Yeah.
It's a deployment scope that we'd actually got as subscription, but should have been resource group because our ARM template was trying to create the prereqs for the resource group.
That makes sense.
Yes, yeah, that was it. Sorry, that joyous voice thing is weird. I don't know what that is. It might be because I've switched between laptops and different docks, and it's caused a problem. I've restarted NVIDIA Broadcast and all sorts.
I mean, all your audio sources are in OBS, so you should be able to see them. So there should only be 3 going up, and if there's 4, then yeah, including me and Jonathan too.
Yeah.
Very odd. Maybe it's just Johnny's ears got chorus effect on.
Possibly.
I can hear it too. It's fine. Carry on.
Anyway, yeah.
So one thing that I would like to do first is add in our Terraform version, like a Terraform file for the versions, so that we can maintain that for the different modules.
Okay.
So I'm going to create one called versions.tf.
Versions of what? Sorry.
Terraform modules and Terraform itself.
So say that all again then, what you're creating.
Creating a versions file there. So like you get packages.config, or now the bit of XML you get in a CS in a project file. It's basically the same kind of idea. Now you can actually do all this in one file if you want to, but I like to separate them out.
Right. So in like a CS proj file for your NuGet package references, it's just the versions of things that you're pulling down. Is that what you're talking about? Or
yes, pretty much. It's pretty much the same idea. In fact, let me just quickly.
For those of us that have never touched Terraform, it's all new.
Exactly. That's why I'm watching and learning.
Yeah.
And I'm just questioning every move that Liam makes.
Standard. It's a sensible thing to do.
That comes up in a bit, yeah.
So I've just added the Terraform extension because I realized I didn't have it installed in Visual Studio Code. So it'll actually, syntax highlight now, which will be useful. So let's take the required version, and our required version should be, I think the latest is 14. I'll double check. Let's have a quick.
$14.
0.147.
See,
Let's go with that.
Semantic versioning brain thinks that they've not even got to the first major release yet because they're still on 0.
Yeah, still in beta.
So let's obviously we're going to be deploying to Azure, right? So what we'll need to do is we'll also need the Azure RM provider. Let's just check what version that is as well, because the latest I've got in some code to my left from one of my blog posts is 2.2.0. Yeah, could you give me a version?
Unreleased.
Released. That's handy. 2.48.
Cool.
0.0. So let's go with. So now we're going to add in a provider, and it's going to be Azure RM. There you go. Well, 2.46 according to this is the one that's available. I'm happy to go with that for now because I don't think you're going to be using any new features.
Would it default to that automatically if you didn't supply that? Maybe.
No, I've never not supplied it, and it's not a risk I want to take whilst doing this live.
Whatever not. That's the whole point of doing these things live, is to go and put the risk into the
spend half an episode
process
working out why something doesn't work.
Yeah.
Probably more than half an episode.
Like, it's not like we've ever done that before.
Oh,
So-
never, ever.
Cool. Johnny, as you're watching, would you mind promoting that we're in the midst of being live as well, please? So what I then want to do is let's start simple. I think the right thing for us to do here is to create our main file, and I'm just going to call it AZ function app main.tf. In fact, no.
Yeah, while you're doing that, we use OBS Ninja for the webcam feeds that you can see on Twitch. And I just realized if you hold the control button and left click, it gives you a whole heap of debugging information about your feeds.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Like lots. Oh. Cool. I don't know what it means. Well, I do, but I don't know what it means now. We're not going to save the world with it, I can tell you that.
No.
So just remind me, though, that this is now us starting to build out the Terraform file to build what we want to build.
Correct.
Have we, just remind, because I can't remember where we got to the end of last episode, is the state file something that is checked in or needs pointing to this storage?
So the state file is something that when we get to that point is we'll use Terraform tasks to say where the state file is, and we'll be able to point it at the storage account. So it will get created when we do our initial deploy, and then it will store that state and do diffs against it versus what's deployed and so on. If we were just doing it from our machine all the time, then you'd have a state file locally, but that's not a great practice to do if you're constantly deploying. And I mean, you could. So in theory, you could just deploy from Azure DevOps all of the time without specifying a state file, but then that state file would only exist on the build agent if you've got hosted, if you're using hosted agents, and then it will no longer exist by the time you come around to doing it again, which is not helpful. So
your cats come to help though. So
he has. Hello, mate. Come on then. Come on. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I agree.
It's all true.
100%.
Every word of it. I think
He's
food
he's at the microphone as
now,
well, so
please.
that's now.
Yeah. Feline-driven development.
So what from Azure RM are we going to be leaning on to build stuff then?
So we are firstly going to need to, in kind of in the same ways that we do for ARM, we're going to need to say, okay, well, we are going to be deploying to a resource group, so we need to give it a resource group property.
Okay.
I think maybe even before that, we should set some variables, so things for naming stuff. Yeah. So if we do, you're really not in the great place to be doing that, mate.
Pair programming or per programming.
Oh.
Anyway.
I'm just here for the puns.
You're really warm as well, and it's not exactly cool in this room today.
Thanks.
So let's give it a.
All right. Okay.
So let's what are we going to call it? So we want to call this based on our naming convention that we agreed last time.
Yes.
We're going to call it. What should we call it? Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
File 1_1.
Let's call it environment prefix.
I'll go on then. Be sensible if you want.
Yeah.
Now, the linter might complain at me because I've not used this version of Terraform just yet, but I think they've done something with strings. But I'm going to type it out and see what happens anyway. So we're going to. Well, I say I'm going to type it out. I'm just going to copy and paste it from my previous example. So what we've got here is where we can actually use variables to replace items in the string. So before we mentioned that we're going to use a shortcode, and then we're going to name our app, and then we're going to use an environment shortcode, and then a location shortcode as well. Now, what you can see there is I've also specified var dot, which means we can pull in variables. It's nice and easy in terms of naming.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm going to do, I'm going to do two things to support this. I'm going to add in sorry if you can hear now a low rumble. He's lying on my lap, purring away, and he's not exactly quiet. I'm going to add in
get rid of that.
I've turned it off for now, just so it might solve the chorus issue. But let me switch it back and see if it restores itself. Maybe. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
That better. Cool. So we've got that. We're going to add in that variables file, which we'll call AZ function. No, not like that. We won't. Function app backend. Is it got? Just double check. Sorry. Yeah. Variables.tf.
So there's none of these files that need to be excluded from the Git check-in at the moment. These are all.
No, none of these will need to be excluded at all. So we've set those out, and what we'll need to do later when we get to that stage is we're also going to need to provide values for that based on what environment we're deploying to in the Azure DevOps pipeline. I'm going to do a little bit of pre-work now because I'm going to add in a file where we're going to basically replace some tokens for later. And we'll call that AZ function app variable, sorry, backend and variables.tf vars. I'm going to whack these in. Because then what we'll do is everything that's got this double underscore on either side of it, we'll use the replace tokens task later to replace that with variables from Azure DevOps. Instead to make it like truly dynamic. And as much as we're only doing this for GitWatcher, which realistically we probably only need two environments at best, which would be dev and prod. If we wanted to add more into that, we then wouldn't need to go away and add in a variables file for each environment, because we could pull those things maybe even out of Key Vault when we're using if we were using secrets, but using the variable groups in Azure DevOps.
Cool.
So let's go back to our main there. So like we were saying before, we've got this environment prefix thing, so we can move through that. Now we're going to need to put in that resource group, right? So let's go with that. So now what we do is we specify a resource block. Yeah, and because we've got the HashiCorp Terraform extension, it's already doing that, and we're looking for an Azure RM _ resource group. There you go. Now the name is the name of the object. It's not what the resource group is going to be called. So I'm just going to call this RG for simplicity's sake. But then name is literally that. So okay, actually I want that to be referencing my local variable that I've just set, which we've called env _ prefix.
Mm-hmm.
And based on our name conventions, I'm just going to put on a suffix of -rg. That should name that accordingly. Location, that's going to be set to the location we're going to pass to it, which is going to be, sorry, no, don't need to do that, just do var.location in this instance. And we can tag the resource group as well if you want to. So let's do tags, and we'll tag it for Pete's benefit in his subscription when we spend all his money with what's
not my money.
No, it's not.
That's a benefit. That's a beauty.
So is that local's definition above not then classed as a variable, and therefore doesn't? That's why you've had to do local dot instead of var dot.
Yeah, effectively. So I guess the closest approximation between that and an ARM template would be let's say the vars are parameters.
Yeah. Okay.
And then locals will be that variables block.
We've just been having that discussion. Redo Bowen in the chat has just been saying that that's always confusing when switching between ARM and Terraform, that ARM variables are Terraform locals and ARM parameters are Terraform variables.
Yeah, pretty much.
Helpful. But also the other reason that you've done that $ prefix is to be able to do the string concatenation, isn't it?
Yeah, and the putting in quotes, I'm not 100% sure if I don't need the quotes anymore, because it's been a while since I've had to write this, especially on account of my more recent endeavors is largely just being YAML and writing Helm charts. So this is I'm a little bit rusty.
It looks a little bit like the C#8, I think, string concatenation curly bracket type idea. What you got there?
Interpolation.
Yeah, that one looks a little bit like that, doesn't it? Which obviously it's the other way around. C#8 looks like Terraform, because that one's definitely afterwards. But
yeah, quotes in ARM templates are also seem to be optional for display name and stuff as well. So no, not ARM templates.
For the benefit YAML, move the camera slightly so that it's less me and more cat. Let me just move his bum because he's falling between my legs, and I like having skin on my legs.
It's useful.
Yeah,
keeps your bones from falling out.
So we've got that. So the next thing we need to do then is actually start specifying our function app, I think. So let's go and have a look what that looks like, because all of this stuff is documented as well, and we can more or less copy and paste it from here. So we've got Azure function app under web apps. There we go.
I'm going to be interested to see how they do this, whether they...
Mate, what are you doing? Why are you putting your bum up so high? Stop it.
I'm live, Daddy.
Look at me, I can twerk.
So So we're using a consumption plan in our instance. So we've basically already done this resource group bit. We're going to need to specify the storage account for the function app. And then what we've got here is we're still running a service plan fundamentally.
Yeah.
And then we set the function app down here.
Nice.
So let's take all of this.
Yep.
And paste it in, and then we'll adapt it to our needs. So what I want to do is actually I'm going to take this. And actually, well, to be honest, I'm actually going to take it from where I've already done this whilst we've been chatting, and take a version of it without the dashes in, because as you've just seen, we're going to use a storage account, and we're going to pop in here locals. Not like that. We're not dots. Prefix from those separator. We can name that storage account. Exactly. So now we've got, so this is called example here, right? So we're going to call this function storage. What we've got is we're saying what resource group it's going to go in. Now what we have is it's referring back to our resource block of resource group. So you can have more than one resource group in one of these if you want to. And then we have the name of the resource group and then the property. Now we named our resource group RG earlier.
Okay. That makes sense.
And we'll do the same there as well. And then this will be.
But these are variables we've specified in that other file. That RG is pulling whatever resource group name, is it, or is that the name of our resource?
No, that's what our name property is right
there.
there. So let me zoom in a little bit so people can see a bit better. So where we've got this, that line 11 there, we have our resource block with the type of resource it is, and then the name of the resource, the name of the resource block more explicitly.
Yeah.
And then we're doing our name and our location. So what we've got now is going, okay, well, I want to refer back to a resource group called block called RG, and then get that name property from there, which is then our local, which is then pulling from our variables file.
Yeah,
sure.
And then we've got all our usual stuff of how much money do we want to spend on our storage account. With standard, GR, GA, RS and stuff like that. And then
SSD storage, do all that. That's fine.
We're going to add our service plan because we'll need that. Otherwise, we're not going to run a function app. And we're going to again follow the same thing. Oh, I've made a mistake there. So when you take that S off, we'll follow the same pattern that we did there. And this is just going to switch to RG. Not like that's not. And that's going to switch to RG as well. And then we've already set our type, which is function app. We've got a SKU and our size. We don't need to touch anything else for that right now. And then here we are. We're going to function app.
Cool.
Which will then be.
Still be in your coffee buffer, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then. Then we'll change that to RG. That to RG. Then we're going to get. We can then get the app service plan ID. From our func plan up here. No more having to do that whole /subscriptions /provider /ID and all that fun stuff. And then we can do the same for storage down here as well. And the great thing there is that's how simple it is to get our SAS token or a SAS key.
Nice.
Down there. So let's save that. And open a quick terminal and we'll push that back up.
Time for GitWatcher to wake up.
Yeah, just make sure that it's still working and that when I was clearing down resources from Pete and I doing our remote control robot arm talk, I didn't accidentally delete the wrong resource group. Don't think I did, but we'll find out.
Well, you didn't delete that demo because I used it during last night's .NET Knots. So
I must delete it from when we did the BCS talk and then stood it up in the middle of when we did IoT live the other
so
day.
just leave that going because I'm just going to keep referring to that as no, and it's just not costing me anything. Well, it is, but it's not.
So added Terraform for backend API. Push. Oh, hang on.
Different laptop.
I think I made that fix in GitHub
Oh, right, okay,
than anywhere else. Yeah. So that's gone up. So whilst that is building, we can now go across to our pipelines. Git. And we can go and edit our pipeline. So we've done our prereqs.
Yep.
And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to add in another stage, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So let's copy from there. Collapse all of these bits, can't we? No, that's too many things. This is going to be dev. We're going to run this when it comes off of main, because that's what our internal Azure Live policy is, I guess.
So
yeah,
I probably missed this or misunderstood something. So this is essentially going to stand up all of our infrastructure, this Terraform file that you created here, Azure Functions and app services and all of that. How does it know that they're not already there? What does it do?
So at the moment, it ultimately boils down to a Azure deployment, right? So there'll be an ARM template in the background somewhere, and we'll be able to compare what exists against the Azure APIs in the background. I think now this isn't 100%. This isn't 100%. This is just based on what I think happens. I've never really looked into it, but maybe we could ask Dominic Top, who to be able to explain to us what the how that works behind the scenes at some point. I know she was on After Dark tail end of last year, but she actually works for HashiCorp as a solutions engineer, so she might be able to explain it better than we can.
Is the answer then magic? It just handles it.
I'm happy to answer that with magic for now.
My assumption though is that if the state file is so important, and this is my layman's understanding is not using Terraform in anger, if the state file is so important that therefore it's more, it relies on that more than it does inspecting the current deployment. Otherwise, what's the point? If it was always referring to the Azure instance and saying, what have you got? And let me do a diff, then the state file would be irrelevant.
Yeah, so like it needs to use the state file as well. So that first run through will create the state file in the first place. You know, we'll create a Terraform plan in a minute.
My guess is that if there was a resource group with the same name already in place, possibly it would fail. I don't know. Again, that's my guess. But
and likewise, if you actually stood something down manually, then because the state file is not kept a track of that, then it's not going to know it needs to stand it back up. And it's just interesting to me. Obviously, every time you push to main, it's going to have to do something to decide whether or not it needs to stand up all that infrastructure or not. That's what the state file theoretically should do.
I think it checks for the existence of the state file first, and then if there isn't one, it'll create it. If the resources already exist and they don't exist in the state file, you can actually import pre-existing resources into that state file as well. And there's also what else was it? There's I can't remember now where I was going with that thought. Because what I was thinking about is the steps that we need to do. So there'll be like a Terraform init, there'll be a Terraform validate, a Terraform plan, and like a Terraform I think it's apply or Terraform deploy. I can't remember which word it is off the top of my head. But to do that, we could go away and we could write scripts for putting down Terraform and everything else. But why should we when we can? Yeah, we can basically use the extension. So I'm going to add the marketplace extension to our Azure DevOps instance. Right, so where are we looking? Which is the best one? Because there's quite a few different ones that we can use. I think this is the one that I've tended to use in the past, but there's also the Microsoft Dev Labs one. So let's go stick down the Microsoft route for now, because we're going to do an init validate plan apply. So let's get that for free because that's fantastic. I saw that, Pete.
Couldn't help myself.
So, Jonathan, whilst the marketplace is catching up, I can see you're doing a little bit of research to.
I am. I've just been reading, and this is me as a novice, and I've detected that it says in the blog, Detecting and Managing Drift with Terraform, it says prior to a plan or apply operation, Terraform does a refresh to update the state file with real-world status. So that's it clearly looks before it leaps, and it says that. And so, from my understanding, the state file is essential to Terraform, but it performs the functions of mapping the resources defined in the configuration with real-world resources. It tracks the metadata about the resources. And I think this is probably the third point is probably the most important one, where it says it caches resource attributes to improve performance when managing large infrastructures. So again, if it can save time by using the state file, it's a benefit to having that shared between team members, by the looks of it, because then you're not having to inspect the Azure subscription every time you're doing a change. Yeah, it's interesting. So there you go. Today I learned Terraform.
So I mean, obviously, the when you're spiking this sort of thing, and you've already spun up the infrastructure without this section of code, it will then align the state file to what you already have, knowing that. Assuming that you've got everything linked up correctly. I'm assuming it needs the right names and resource groups got to be the same. Everything's got to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
So I've just added a task for putting Terraform on the build agent.
Yep.
And then we're going to want to add in some more Terraform tasks, basically. There we go. So we're going to do Terraform init. And we are looking in infrastructure directory. Structure / where did we put this? Backend. This is looking for where the Terraform files are stored. We're going to set our service connection for GitWatcher, because we're also going to need to set up our variables in a minute as well. So I've actually jumped a step ahead at the moment. So we're going to put this into AZL -GitWatcher.
So is this providing values for the variables that we defined?
No, because I've started wrong. So what we're looking at here is the Azure IAM backend configuration. So this is actually pointing it to where our state file is sitting.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
I'm going to add that in. But what I have missed, what is that saying? Oh, we don't need all of those.
No, we don't. For we are not using AWS.
Otherwise,
I'm
it'd be
just going to
AWS live, and it just doesn't sound as good.
no. So I'm just going to stash this in a new branch for the moment because we need to add another marketplace extension. Because there's lots of ways you can do token replacement ultimately. But what I want to use is a very specific way of doing it. That, in fact, replace tokens thing. So, like we were talking about before, we're going to be setting token prefixes and suffixes and then replacing them through files ultimately. So let's go and add this.
I use Key Vault for my token replacement.
Well, yeah, you can do it. I guess there's nothing that we've put in there right now other than maybe the storage account key that we would need from Key Vault. Otherwise, we're just storing like environment names or shortcodes.
Yeah, but I still count that as secrets that are, I mean, it depends on your definition of a secret, but I tend to use it just because it's environment specific. So I have a different key vault for each environment and use it as a place of storing configuration.
So I like to be able to do it at this point, unless it's like a connection string or something like that, because it provides a more accessible way for, say, development teams to be able to go and say, let me just go and add dev2 or UAT3 and that kind of thing, and all they need to do is name this step UAT or whatever they need to do.
Okay.
I say that's the way I would have done it in the GUI way of doing things. How if that's about to work, it's another thing.
Yeah.
I think I use that same extension plugin bit for my IoT DevOps. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No. In fact, before we do that, let's set our variables. Let's just set those variables. Or in fact, I don't think we need to do it here. We can do it at this point, can't we? Because I'm sure we started doing that last time. So there's variables up here, but I think we don't need that anymore.
Just say that now.
Yeah.
5 minutes later.
No, I can't believe I got rid of it.
Don't need that. I want to add in variables. And we want those variables to be called environment. We want is it location? What did we need? What are we putting? Yeah, variables. It's very windy here today as well, isn't it? So we want our location, and we want our location shortcode, and we're going to want our shortcode for us, and then our product name. So, in fact, let's just copy all of these for now. We'll put them in here like that. That's going to be dev. No, sorry, that's going to be UK South. It does have a dark theme, Andy. The only reason I'm not using it here is it's a little bit more readable on the screen, but you can change all those settings by going to that here and theme, and there you go.
It does look nice, but you're right. Well, having said that, you have been sat in VS Code with dark theme on, right, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I've been told before when I've been presenting that exactly what you've just said, that it's more difficult to read. I find it later at night, actually, I don't like it on my eyes as much. You look away and you can see the white text on a black background. You end up with that inverse effect in your eyes, that horrible feeling. Or I do, at least.
Our shortcode is AZL. Our product is GitWatcher. environment name is dev. Now that we've got those, let's add in our replace tokens task. And our root directory is going to be system.default working directory /infrastructure /
type and hard to
backend.
say.
Yeah, I always cock up spelling infrastructure pretty much every time, unless I say it out as I'm typing it. Target files, TF files. So let's go advanced, and our suffix, or our prefix, sorry, is __, and our suffix is also __. So let's add that in.
So obviously, Liam, this is something that you've done before more than once.
Does
by
it
the looks
show?
of
Oh,
a little bit, yeah. But you've not practiced this specific thing. This is something
No,
you've
I
used
would.
not part of your
YAML,
career
YAML
already.
pipelines are my jam. So,
But that and Terraform, because you seemed quite fluent with what you were doing there to a degree. So
less so with Terraform. I think I actually have been a massive advocate of ARM templates for the longest time. And it wasn't until I started working where I do now that I really got into using Terraform, because that's kind of our de facto standard tool because we work cross cloud. And it using like that, the same syntax and language across multiple cloud providers makes your life so much easier.
Mhm.
You know, I don't have to remember half as much. And I don't have the best memory in the world anyway. So, as anybody can pretty much attest to. So,
but then again,
Who-
how much is
who are you?
actually similar? If you're having to use providers that have different specific variables anyway, like you're using an Azure module here, effectively,
yeah.
where's the
So I
crossover anyway?
guess if let's go back to providers, HashiCorp and AWS. Now here's where I'm going to struggle with remembering what the name of the equivalent function app is in AWS, because
Lambda.
That's it. Yeah, because AWS make things stupidly named like Beanstalk.
Yes, they do. Yep. They just have like the project names that Microsoft use, but they just never change them. Leave it at the beta project name.
So it's not too dissimilar. I mean, there is obviously a difference there, but it's more a properties difference rather than anything else.
So for me, it's like, yes, the thing you're executing is the same, and the pattern that you're using of just going and finding a resource and stuff, but it's not abstracted to the point where
No, it's not so abstract that it's basically right and same. Yeah,
they're all provider
but
specific.
I will choose to write Terraform any day of the week over writing a CloudFormation template. Because it like.
Yeah, I just don't have a need to be cross cloud at the moment, so therefore I've not had a need to. So
no, exactly, and ARM templates are great in JSON. I really like Bicep as well, but CloudFormation can get in the bin. So
I've not looked at CloudFormation. See, this isn't the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis. Normally, somebody else is doing this. After I've left them with, a whole heap of stood-up dev stuff. There you go. I'll leave you with the rest of that.
I mean, CloudFormation you can write as JSON or you can write as YAML, but even so, they're horrible. So we can do basically we're gonna follow kind of this pattern. So we're gonna add in the plan, and I'm gonna put it into infrastructure. There we go again. Structure backend. Point to our Azure sub. Sorry, Jesus.
You really shouldn't have had that bottle of wine before you came on. That was the problem.
It's been a tough week.
It's Tuesday.
So I'm going to need to set our backend service, which isn't set here. We'll just double check what I did there. just to be on the safe side. So what we can actually do is I'm gonna actually just add in our backend state stuff up here. I'm gonna need it a few times. And then to use those variables further down, we've got our container name, which is pretty much just hold on. Blah 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 blah. We call it so backend Azure RM container name.
Is there
And
something to be said for doing this YAML editing in VS Code and pushing it back up so you get IntelliSense rather than doing it in the browser?
you get IntelliSense here, but also you get the little tasks thing here where you can just fill out the boxes and hit add. You can't do that in Visual Studio Code.
Right. There's no plugin then for any of this for
No.
VS Code. Because while you were typing, I didn't see IntelliSense come up while you were typing some of that stuff, but I thought maybe my brain was telling me it should have done. That's why I was asking. It does for things like that, but for variable names you were typing, it didn't seem to. I don't know. Maybe it was just I missed it.
I don't think it comes up for variable names, but I don't tend to be. I mean, personally, I don't tend to be out of doing it like this enough to notice.
It was quite funny while you were typing that. It said no suggestions found as well.
You do
It was like it was telling you.
There is an Azure Pipelines for VS Code extension that I use, and it does give you IntelliSense. It doesn't give you much different to what Liam's showing you in the browser.
Right, but it's the stuff after the, obviously we've got all of the bits on the left-hand side.
I find it really useful.
It's the stuff after it that, because there's your IntelliSense I can see popping up, but it's after that colon, it didn't appear to give you much in the way of IntelliSense, where I feel like VS Code would.
I don't think it does actually.
I suppose if you're putting it in quotes, it might not do. I don't know. Maybe I get a feeling it would, but I don't know enough about it. I, like you, would be editing this in the browser, so I'm just wondering though.
I'll paste it to the chat of the thing I use.
So there's our plan. We're going to pop in some options as well, actually. So if I click back on settings here, I'm going to need to tell it where the variables file is, or specifically what variables file to use. Here's one I made earlier, and I'm just going to change the value on it. Because I know we've only got a few minutes of the show left.
4 to be precise.
So this was under backend. And then it was, what's the file called? Yeah, it's this one, isn't it? Replace that there. And that's going to create as a plan file when that is done. Or it could just undo all of those bits that I've just done. Cool. Fantastic.
That was rude.
So I'm going to, it's command option. Oh, options, there we go. And then we really just need to add in Terraform Apply at this stage. So I'm going to use one from my blog post to save us some time, just because of where we're at. A little bit. On Terraform Apply, just need to make sure that our working directory is correct.
Yep.
Again, with approving our plan file, ARM connection is called GitWatcher. I've not bothered putting that in a variable in this instance. Do we have resource group TF state? Is that one we created? Just double checking. No, so we just need to add that in.
I was just going to ask that.
Resource group TF state. and that is the one that we picked from the drop down earlier. So, as like I mentioned, we're going to be using this a few times, so we'll pop that in there. $, resource group TF state there, and that,
Nice.
in theory, should be
Push the
it.
button.
So I'm going to click save.
The timing is impeccable if that is it.
And I am going to open a pull request because obviously we've done this on our own whatchamacallit right now.
Yeah, the whatchamacallit, definitely the whatchamacallit.
The thingamabob.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So github.com. There you go. Pull requests. Create a new pull request in here. Actually, is that one we created? Anyway, I think that's the same one. Yeah, pretty much. Jonathan or Pete, would you like to go and...
Looks like Jonathan's on it. I can see frantic movement. Yep.
There you go. Going to merge that in. Commit merge.
I do like how this all updates in the page.
It's insanely quick as well. I mean,
I
literally just click that.
I wonder, do they use SignalR or is it just plain WebSockets they've got going on underneath there or that sort of thing? But
okay, so in theory, there you go. There is a build running. That's a PR build. So don't want a PR build. Want a cancel of that. Well, there should be a commit to main, or it could just carry on. That's also an option. So it hasn't triggered off of main for some reason at the moment. So I'm going to just do a manual run for now. Hit
boom.
Run.
Whole of Azure is going to fall down now.
You can see now we've already got our extra stage. So, and it's depending on prereqs.
If it's anything like last week, we'll be waiting for build agents.
Yeah, that's true.
Quite, yeah.
I mean, I think, is this the time when America starts waking up? Not long, I suppose, on the East Coast. Yeah. 5 hours or something, is it? 6 hours?
Something like that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Everytimezone.com website.
Like time in New York, 8:30 in the morning. Yeah, so exactly.
Ow. It's very warm. Oh, there you go. He's off.
Oh,
okay. Is that enough?
Too hot now. I'm too hot. I'm getting up.
Now that it's building, his job is done.
Yeah, his foreman corrected.
Pair programming is no longer needed.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so that's our pipeline aspect. Now, it should, I believe, from what we were looking at before, I will just double check the code in our repo whilst we're at it. CI/CD folder. We've got our API. Yeah, so we're publishing the whole infrastructure directory as that artifact. So that's that step done. Let's refresh this page because the UI isn't always the fastest on updating. You see our 2 artifacts produced there as well. Prereqs happening.
This is cool, might I add. Not being able to reproduce what you've just done there, but seeing what you can do, that is pretty cool.
Well, Pete, I am recruiting at the moment. In fact, Andy in the chat, he's coming to work with us as well in March.
Congratulations. Here's the work and some more.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
Looks
good.
like he's already a fan of Terraform, so that's a plus already.
Yes. No, he just said Terraform's better than CloudFormation. He might still actually hate it, but just hates it less than CloudFormation.
I'd still take that over doing the UI every week.
Does it use the same build agent, or is it requesting a different build agent per stage?
I believe it's doing a whole job initialization step each time, so that looks like it's going to a new agent each time.
And we're not going to do like a cut it off and say next time on Azureish Live.
Yeah.
Well,
Leave people with a
Moving on,
cliffhanger. Yeah.
let's see if it's red. Yes.
The time's up.
It's busy.
Yeah. So what we haven't done here is also named our steps.
Yes.
Obviously, we
We'll
did
display names.
Terraform Apply. So the plan is valid. You see, it's gone through. We've replaced our tokens. Now 4 out of 5 have been replaced. So one of them we've missed. Don't know which one. Soon find out. Version constraints inside provided configuration blocks deprecated. So there is a newer version of Azure RM. We can go and update that if we want to. Yeah, there you go. We've missed off the environment name stuff. So that'll be the problem there. So let me just quickly go and fix that, because it won't take me 2 seconds.
And by the way, Cliff, Aegis, and myself will be live on this same Twitch channel 9 p.m. GMT tonight, talking 3D printers and PCB design, amongst other things. So tune in for that. That's going to be good fun. And is there a Johnny Chips show tomorrow? What's
Friday.
happening tomorrow? Friday.
Tomorrow night is
Azureish Live after dark.
After dark, yeah.
Yes. Who've we got?
Not sure yet, actually. I'll have to check.
Okay. How you fixed, Andy?
So what did we miss? So we've got that. Sorry, keep going, Pete. I'm talking to myself.
That's right. Yeah. So after that, then Thursday lunchtime at 2 p.m. GMT, Benjamin Carbe from the Microsoft IoT team and Cliff Aegis and myself will be continuing our build of our LoRaWAN solution that we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure if Thursday's episode is the last one in the series. It just depends on how far we get. Well, I don't even know about crossing your fingers because I'm quite enjoying it. But we're going to carry on with Azure Digital Twins on Thursday, but there's also a Blender section. And it just depends on whether or not we want to do that section as well. But I like that. That's the real worldy part of it. It's a really cool part of the demo. So it might be that we get an extra one. But we've persuaded Paul DiCarlo, also from a separate part of the Azure Advocacy team concentrating on IoT, and he's going to come on and we're going to build NVIDIA Jetson AI at the edge infrastructure type thing. So I don't know quite what we're going to do on top of that, but I've got a Jetson Nano sitting behind me over there. You can just see it in the green box. And so we're going to build something up with that. I think Cliff has actually got one as well. So it'll be a case of Paul doing what he does. He lectures at university as well as his job, and he lectures on AI at the edge with the NVIDIA tech. So it'll be quite interesting to do it live. So anyway, did that pass enough time for you to get done what you need to get done?
Thank you very much, Pete. So the problem was we named the variable name from Terraform, but the actual value we're trying to replace isn't called that. It's called environment_name. So I've just replaced that.
Right. You've replaced your variable replacement.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that should be running now. I'm not sure why it's not triggering actually automatically, which is an interesting thing. It might just be that it's slow, perhaps, but yeah. But automatic triggers don't seem to be very happy. The other thing that's I know we're slightly over time, so I just want to have this run, and then we'll finish our wrap up. But it's worth noting at the moment, our Azure DevOps project here is an open source one, but recently Microsoft actually announced that for new open source projects, they won't be providing the free hosted agents anymore, because they've been abused by crypto miners ultimately. But what you can do is you can still do the same, but in GitHub and with GitHub Actions, and go down that route instead if you so chose to. And maybe on a future show we'll show you how to do this in GitHub Actions as well as an alternative. But if you're actually enjoying all the Azure DevOps content that we've been through today, the meetup that I co-organise with my friend Misha Bell, who coincidentally it's her birthday today, so happy birthday, Misha.
Oh,
it is, yeah. so she's actually taking the meetup off this evening. But yeah, so we've got Mike Martin from Microsoft coming along to talk about DevSecOps with Azure DevOps, and Martin Coupland is coming as well to talk about achieving your DevOps goals, and that'll be available from 6:30 p.m. We'll be putting it out live to YouTube, and you can actually come to the meetup as well. So if you go to meetup.com / I think just DevOps-Knots, I think is the URL, or even just Google DevOps Knots, you can RSVP and you'll be able to get the Zoom invite and everything for later this evening.
Very nice.
Very good.
Good.
So,
is it going to work? Oh,
maybe. I hope so. Hope so. It was literally the last step that you failed on as well, not just the last stage.
We've started. And do you still send out your Zoom link as an invite after the sort of before the event starts?
I haven't been. I
Right.
tend to put it in the
meetup
RSVP
directory.
only thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do. So you can't see it unless you RSVP. Well, it's okay. It's by default in Meetup, but anyway. But
yeah. There you go. Like you see, it's replaced it. So there's the plan with what's going to happen now. So it's corrected all of that from the step that's missing there. You see devs in there now. And this is basically everything that's gonna happen. So it prints it out to the screen for you to give you a little bit of a preview. I think that's run for longer than it did last time. I don't know, there's 33 seconds there. 34. That's progress.
Things taking longer isn't progress, Liam.
Well, so you see what it's doing though. So what we've had in our plan here is it's telling us that it's forcing replacement. So it's actually replacing this functions plan as well. And you can see here it's actually doing a tear down before it's creating the new pieces. It gives you that more verbose.
So it's found something that was with the same name,
and it's torn it down.
That was incorrect,
right?
And it's torn it down to stand it up. So you could change that behavior as well. So.
What does it mean by incorrect? What do you mean?
So we had in our Terraform plan, or our Terraform state, we had that name that was wrong, and we basically renamed a resource. And I'm sure as you know, in Azure, if you're renaming a resource, to do that you have to tear it down and stand it back up.
Yeah.
So it's essentially doing that operation.
So you've got to be relatively careful. You once you go this way, you're all in. Essentially, you wouldn't want to be going into that resource and doing any manual config because it's gone.
I would say, at any point in your lifetime, if you're doing manual config through the portal, you're doing it wrong.
Well, I think in dev it's fine because I wouldn't write the infrastructure for something I don't know what I'm writing for. That's kind of where that's why I'm not so experienced in it.
Well, I guess if you're doing, let's say in your Visual Studio subscription to figure something out, but when it actually goes to a real environment, then even if it's a dev environment, it should be, in my opinion, everything should be as code.
I agree. That's something that I talk on in my DevOps talk. The definition of insanity in IT operations is manually doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same result every time because you're going to slip up at some point.
I think probably part of the problem for me is that I'm very rarely given a sufficient quota of money to be able to spend a sufficient amount of time, because it takes time to actually do that work. The time that the client very rarely will want to pay for. They just want the result, and there it is, hand it over and leave it with me. I'm not paying you to spend all that time.
Well, exactly. And so I mean, there's lots of reasons that you might want to do this kind of thing, but that's a conversation we can continue another time.
Yes,
but we can see that this has worked. That is applied. If we go very quickly into the Azure portal now, catches up. Come on, there we go. If we go to resource groups, you can see somewhere. I don't know where that's gone. No, that's our existing one. So I'm not entirely sure where that's gone.
Shall I have a look?
Oh well.
Have a look.
Yeah. There's definitely the GitWatcher sub. So
well, we'll Tune in
We'll
next
figure it
time.
out.
Find
Yeah.
out.
It's a treasure hunt. We'll just open
As
it up.
we
and
solve the
try to find it.
mystery of the missing resource group.
Mm.
Send Annika Rice off to find it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much for tuning in and bearing with us. We'll figure out where that's going. It could be that the portal hasn't updated for me yet. It could be cached as well, to be fair, as I've had that happen a few times.
What do you expect it to be called, by the way?
It would be some prefix with AZL-GitWatcher, I think.
Yeah, I can see it. AZL GitWatcher Dev
It's
UKS
just on my end then, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I bet if I use the Azure CLI now, it would give it to me anyway. It's just the UI.
There's a funk and a storage account in it, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed our content today, please obviously follow us if you're watching live on Twitch, or even subscribe to us so that you can help to fund our many caffeine related addictions.
Alcohol related addictions.
If you're watching on demand on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe this video, and we will see you all again very soon.